Geeks, hoje é mais um dia de Bia Recebe e hoje eu vou conversar com Stephen Surjik. Ele foi diretor de Arquivo X, Flash, Arrow, todo a galera da Marvel, Netflix, então Jessica Jones, Lucas Cage, Punho de Ferro, Os Defensores. Ele também foi de The Gifted e Umbrella Academy e The Witcher.
Oh my God.
Nesse vídeo vamos falar sobre a carreira dele e também novidades que você não sabe sobre Umbrella Academy, que estreia agora, dia 31. Então se você não é inscrito no canal, já se inscreve aqui embaixo. Não esquece de deixar o seu like, ajuda bastante gente aqui no canal, que esse vídeo vai começar! Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be talking to you right now.
Hi, I'm honored to be talking to you.
You have an amazing career.
I'm very lucky, and I've been doing it a long time. You know, it's been like 1,000 years I've been in the business. So eventually you get around and stuff.
So you have an amazing career. As I said, since the 90s, you are directing amazing shows. What's the most iconic show that for you you did, and can you do like a top 3 maybe?
I don't really know if I've done like amazing shows, and I don't know if there's iconic shows that I've done, but I feel like there's a lot of shows that I wish I did. You know, iconic shows that I missed out on. Shows like The American. There's a show here right now called Ozark. Have you ever seen Ozark?
Yes, it's amazing.
I adore Ozark. I'd love to do Ozark. I love Succession on HBO. You know, I'm really lucky to be on the shows that I'm on, and it's sort of like the last show that I'm on is usually a result of all the work that I've done. Okay. So it's usually the most challenging, the most interesting thing for me. So just by nature of what I'm doing, it's like the last show that I'm on is like I'm most excited about. So, and I know that sounds political, but it is really truly the case. I'm like right now I'm on, I can't believe it, but I'm working on Witcher, and it's just like, it blows my mind. Now, right before that, I was working on Umbrella Academy, and that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I'm working on, and again, I'm doing Umbrella Academy again. And then before that, it was C, on the Apple show C, which I couldn't believe I was working on. And I just feel like I'm really lucky to be working on the shows that I get to work on. So.
You just said like a lot of names, and they say, oh, I don't know if I did iconic shows, but like they all so iconic. And like you did a lot of geek shows, a lot of them. We have like X-Files, Arrow, Flash, The Gift. I love The Gifted. So many geek shows now, Umbrella Academy, The Witcher. So like, do you think you are specialized in geek shows?
Really, really good question. And I've thought about this. And I remember reading a quote by Steven Spielberg, and I'm not comparing myself to the great one, but Steven Spielberg said, if you come from a family that's really messed up, it makes you a really good director, because you learn, you know, through the dysfunctions of all the people in your family, how to, like, you find your place, and you learn how to work with people, and you learn how to not get involved too much, but just enough. And so my family was pretty messed up. And, you know, I find a way to fit into a lot of these shows. I had the opportunity to work on a lot of the Marvel shows, like you said, Arrow. I worked on, you know, on the Defenders, on Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. And I did this whole run of shows with Marvel, which was a really good opportunity because I got to work on so many different. Every show has its own rules and regulations and its own reality, and yet they're related all in some way. And so I got to work on a lot of those. Someone once said that Hollywood is run by nerds, and nerds are taking revenge on the world because in school they were, you know, put upon and stuff. You know, this is true. I think it is a revenge of the nerds, and I think that when I run into a producer in a Hollywood meeting, I get a job much like an actor does. I go in and I pitch my stuff, I talk about what I do, and they kind of get a sense of who you are, and it's like an audition, and then they tell you whether they want to work with you or not. And I think that they have a real sense that of who I am, and part of who I am is someone who, you know, embraces the nerd, you know, plain and simple. I mean, look at me. This is not a costume. I mean, this is not a costume I put on for you. This is my work clothes. I have a white shirt, a tie. I will go to work. I'm very, you know, I draw all my storyboards. I shoot all my scenes. I'm very fastidious. I am a nerd.
because you think you're not, that's what attracted you to work in so many geek shows?
I think what it was is, as a nerd, I had sort of insecurities in my directing style. And so what I did is I approached it in a way that would give me security. And what that was is even from very early on, I would draw all of my scenes, like frame for frame. I would draw them out. Okay. So, I'm working right now, I'm just doing my prep for the second part of Witcher. Oh. And, I've got storyboards that go on for, days. And so I would draw them all, and it would give me a sense of grounding. It would make me feel like I knew what I kind of needed. What I learned was that when I got involved with Marvel in particular, Marvel is a graphic narrative. It's like strong graphic, foreground, dark, film noir. These were all of my influences drawing. So what happened is they saw the work that I was doing in my prep and how I worked, and it kind of coincided right on top of what they did in the graphic narrative world of Marvel. And that was just a natural marriage, and off we went.
If you say you like so much this geek world, if you have a superpower, what would it be?
This gets super personal, but I think, and I don't want to, I think it would be, if I was to have a superpower, I think it would be to be a healer, to be able to make people better from whatever sickness they have. And I think that so many people right now, that becomes more relevant, but everybody in their family, everyone has someone who's not well, and everybody wants them to be better, and they pray for that, and they wish for that, and wish they could do something about it. And I just think that if you had that superpower, you could do that with everyone. It would be fantastic.
So you talked about Umbrella Academy. We have to talk about Umbrella Academy. It's gonna be premiering 31st right now. I'm sorry, I'm a super fan of Umbrella.
You know what? I too am a super fan of Umbrella, and I really truly am. There's often you find yourself as a director, you're working on a show that you may not even watch on television. I won't. That doesn't often happen because I study all of them, but it sometimes happens. In Umbrella Academy, it is exactly kind of the show that I would watch, that I would aspire to direct, and so I just feel like I'm really lucky to be a part of it. And when I first came on board, I didn't know it was going to be that. Because you come in early, and I knew about Gabriel Bond, I knew about My Chemical Romance, the influence, and I read about it, I watched it. And then I started to read the scripts because they made we met, and they thought it would be a good fit. And in fact, the person that is the showrunner on Witcher, Lauren, she was a writer on Umbrella Academy, and she's the one that brought me in. She's like, come on, do it. And I was like, I don't know, I don't understand it. And then I read it, and I didn't understand it. I read my script, I was kind of, how does this work? I didn't know the vibe. I didn't know the atmosphere. I didn't know who the characters were. Then one day, while I was prepping that show, the producer, Stephen Blackman, a genius, said, we finished a rough cut of the first episode. We'd like you to take a look at it, and it might help you figure out what you're doing. I've never seen anything like that. That first episode, those kids in that bank. And I just was like, do you know what you're doing? I said, you're dealing with nuclear power here. You have to be careful that you don't destroy the world in releasing this. This is too powerful too. The rest is kind of history. Well, we're coming out with the new episodes. Those 2 episodes that I did this year, much earlier, they're episode 2 and 3. The show does it this season. It's a little bit different. They don't have to do all the explanation and any of the exposition. They don't have to set any of that up. So they go right into it. There is something going on. They have to, what happened at the end of the last. So they pick it up right there. And they're in a time travel. They land in a new place. I'll tell you something that you don't know, and that no one knows about the show, but it's only a teaser, and it's a clue. It's not an actual thing, because they'll chop my head off and bury me in a shallow grave. The show deals with a subject that is extremely relevant today, really relevant today. And I'll just leave it at that, and when you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Oh my God.
Now, when I say that, because Dallas in 1963 there's certain things you go right to your brain, and when you see it, you'll go, oh yeah, I get it's obvious, but I can't talk about it, so we'll leave it at that. And we'll say that the show moves a lot faster because they don't have all that. Last year it took a little while to figure out where we were, what we were doing, how it worked. And one of the reasons I love the show is because the family, which is largely a dysfunctional family, actually fits together. It actually feels like a family. And I don't know how they did that. I give that credit to the cast, credit to Stephen Blackman and the way that he cast them, but it's just the best group of people ever, you know.
So let's talk about this. You say that the first season we have like more slowly timeline and all this stuff, but you did for me, the most important episodes of the first season. That is the day there was and the day there was, because that's when we understand the plot of the first season, and you have like a strange time looping and everything. So how was your creative process to direct these episodes? Because they are amazing, they are like very beautiful, and they are really important.
Well, really good question, and it's relevant to me because when I read those 2 episodes, you can imagine, I thought I started reading the same episode again. I finished the first one, and I went to the next one, and as I turned the page, I thought, am I reading the same? And I went back, no, it's different, but it's the same, as you know. And when I finished it, I went, and I just finished what you know, right after I finished the second one, I then watched the first episode. I went, oh my God, this is a totally different game. I have to be on top. I have to do something great. I have to be better than I am. I have to be like, this is so above me. And I'm so lucky to be, so I started again, and I read the first script and the second script, and I drew charts on the walls that would connect every scene that was similar, how they were similar, how they were different, who was in them, who wasn't in them, what would I do to make them different, why were they different, how does that reflect on the larger thing? It was complicated. And I'll tell you what was super complicated was remembering when we were shooting this piece of film for this episode, which one it was, because if you're going to shoot episode 1 and episode 2, and they're going to normally be quite different, and they're easy to remember that way. But when they're the same but slightly different, it's impossible to pull them apart. They always, in your brain, they go to the same place. So everyone on the set didn't have any idea what we were doing except for me and the script person. The script person understood completely what was going on. I barely could keep up with what was happening. I didn't know, it was complicated. There was a show, there was a television show on NBC some time back called Boomtown. And Graham Yost was the writer on it. It was a brilliant show. When it worked, it was the smartest show on TV. It was the smartest show that was ever done. And when it didn't work, it was, it would collapse into smoke. But they attempted it, and every once in a while they hit it right on. And it was a show that would be, in the first act, you would go to a crime scene and you would maybe with a criminal, you'd go through the crime. And in the next act, you would go through that same scene as a victim, perhaps. And it would be a different movie. I don't mean from a different angle. They would have different clothes. It would change based on the perception of the person that was seeing it. The next act, it might be the police going through, doing their investigation, and it would change again. And I thought, well, that's a really good model to study, because this was similar to that. We had 2 shows that were essentially the same scene, that ran. And so I used that as an example to myself. And I won't go into too many details except to say that it was a really good study tool.
So you said that it was really different, and that you love it because it's so different than what you did, and it was a good study. Do you have any iconic moments in the backstage that you can remember for this?
If I talk about this season we just did, I'll go to they'll send me to the gulag. But in the first year, the first time I directed, we were doing a scene in a club. In the rave, the actor Robert Sheenan has a flashback. First of all, his brother takes a pill and he crawls for that pill. He's crawling along, and with all the flashing and noise, it takes him back to Vietnam, where he had time traveled to Vietnam, fallen in love with this beautiful young man, and that young man died. So as he was crawling, these flashes were going off, and it was supposed to send him back to this Vietnam. And I had requested that we bring in a bunch of mud into the club. And the mud, and he would crawl on the floor, and then the floor would turn to mud, and then more mud. Then there would be a trench, and then there would be bodies, then there'd be flashing. And then, soldiers would be running over him, and that would be the transition back to Vietnam. And of course, we were in the club working, and this was a very difficult sell because, bringing mud, because the transition, like bringing the actual mud in and setting that up would require a lot of time. And it was time when we had a lot of extras there. We had hundreds of kids, working that day. So they were working away, putting that mud. I was at lunch, and everybody was smelled something really awful as we were eating lunch. I was like, what does that smell? No, it's awful. I go outside and eat. And then I came back later, and everybody had left the whole building basically because of the terrible smell. And I got onto set, and they'd set up the mud. It looked great. It was coming along very nicely, but the smell was unbearable. And I was like, as I got closer, I realized that the mud that they, as we looked into it, the mud that they purchased from a vendor that came in and dropped it down, was from like a farmer who had mixed it with pig manure, that was there to, fertilize and make a good, healthy dirt. I was a huge fan of Robert. I still pray at his altar. I think he's a spectacular actor. I watched him in Misfits. Everything he did, cracked me up. He was sharp. He's in character. He was voodoo-like. And I knew that I could have probably said, look, I put glass in the mud. You can roll in the dirt and you'll bleed. Okay. And he'd probably say, okay, let's go. He's that kind of actor. But I could not bring myself to have him roll in picture. I just couldn't do it, So I said, clean this shit out of here. Take it out. Literally take the shit away from the set. He started scraping it up. It was yelling at me because why'd we bring it in? And so now it was out. We cleaned the floor and we just had him crawl along the floor. The lights went off. The guys ran over him. And then we were in we just did it like that. But that was a moment that I saw my life flash in front of me. And I thought maybe I would be dead in a trance.
I think he was a little happy that he didn't need to crawl and take urine.
He did. I'm glad I didn't have to ask him. I don't know if he would have or wouldn't have, but he's a pretty committed actor.
What can we expect from this next season?
Umbrella Academy will be it'll move a lot faster. I think it's way more stylish. Now, the cast always had a lot of style, but I think we caught up to them finally. With the music. The music on the first season was brilliant. I loved what they did. Yes. And already they're doing the same thing. I don't exactly know where it will land because, I put in my edit, I put in my suggestions and stuff. I don't exactly know where it will land. I think you're going to find that it's going to move forward a lot quicker, a lot faster. There's going to be more depth in the relations. It will move quicker. The plot moves faster. And because there's a shorthand now, we understand, who's involved and how it works. It will be much easier to watch. It'll be just, everybody will go with an expectation. And we're not going to give you what you want. We're going to give you what you really need, and you'll like it even better. I promise you. Yeah, it'll be really, really good. I think it's way better, and I'm.
Is it way better from the second season? The first season?
I think so. I never say that because I wouldn't want to oversell something, but I think it's actually way better. I just. From the outside, I read the script, I say, it rocks.
Espero que você tenha gostado dessa conversa com o Stephen Surjik. Ainda tem mais um vídeo onde a gente vai conversar sobre The Witcher segunda temporada, então já se inscreve aqui, liga o sininho para você não perder. Eu também tô no Facebook, no Instagram e no TikTok como Bia Contursi e no Twitter como Bia Contursi. Beijo!